Gentlemen, is a new world order all set to be formed? Well, after 7 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited China, where he held a bilateral meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. These bilateral talks were held in Tianjin ahead of the SCO summit. Remember, this meeting comes amid the tariffs imposed by the US and China's own unstable ties with America. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping met on the sidelines of the SCO summit. This meeting went on for about an hour, during which National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri were present from the Indian side, while Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi took part in this meeting. In his opening remarks, PM Modi emphasized on the India-China ties while making key announcements, including the resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Border issues were also discussed.
Excellency, हमारे प्यारे दोस्तों के स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। पिछले वर्ष कल्याण में हमारी बहुत ही सार्थक चर्चा हुई। हमारे संबंधों को एक सकारात्मक दिशा मिली। सीमा पर डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू हुई। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के बीच जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, चीन द्वारा SCO की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
双方认真落实大体合作共识，两国交往合作不断取得新进。Mr. Prime Minister, it's a great pleasure for me to meet you again this time in Tianjin. Welcome to come to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Tianjin Summit. Last year, you and I had a successful meeting in Taiwan, and the China-India relationship as a reset and the start of the new year. The two sides have illustrated the important consensus we have agreed, and the bilateral exchanges and cooperation seem to make new progress. 当前，世界百年变局加速演进，国际形势变乱交织。中国和印度是两大东方的组合，是世界上人口最多的两个国家，也是全球南方重要城市，肩负着造福某国利益、促进发展中国家团结振兴、推动人类社会进步的重要责任。做睦邻友好的朋友，相互成就伙伴，实现龙象共舞，应当是中印双方的正确选择。The world today is swept by one-centric transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East, where the world's two most populous countries, and we are also important members of the global south. we both shoulder a historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and propelling the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success, and to have the dragon and the elephant dance together.
今年是中印建交70周年，双方要坚持从战略高度和长远角度看待和处理中印关系，推动两国关系持续健康稳定发展。双方还要共同展现历史担当，坚持多边原则，携手推动世界多极化和国际关系民主化，为维护亚洲乃至世界和平和繁荣做出应有的贡献。
This year marks the 75th anniversary of China-India diplomatic ties. Both sides need to approach and handle our relationship from a strategic height and long-term perspective, so as to realize the sustained, sound and steady development of our bilateral ties. We must also step up to our historic responsibility to uphold multilateralism, work together to bring about a multipolar world and more democracy in international relations, and to make our due contributions to peace and prosperity in Asia and around the world.
All right, so that was, of course, the bilateral talk that happened between Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as President Xi Jinping. The opening statements, of course, stressing on mutual respect, mutual trust and shared concerns. Remember, there was an emphasis on how borders should remain peaceful and stable. And the Indian government, remember, has always made it clear that without the border being stable, we will not be able to move forward and deepen this relationship. Let me introduce my guest on the show. Professor Madhav Nalapa, geopolitical analyst, joins us. Major General Dhruv Katoj, Director, India Foundation, is with us. Dr. Swaran Singh, Professor of International Relations at JNU, is also with us, as well as Ambassador Phunchok Stobdan. Also joins us on the broadcast. My colleague Swati, who is reporting us and getting us the latest from Tianjin, also joins us. Welcome to all of you. First, to you, Swati, can I first understand from you what is happening there? We just heard both the leaders making some very clear, sharp statements as far as the India-China relationship is concerned. Now, what are we expecting in the day?
Well, we are expecting a press conference, in fact, to take place to get us more details on what was discussed during the bilateral. We heard the opening statements in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping both underlined the importance of India-China relationship. In fact, the Chinese President also underlined how this is the 75th anniversary of India-China diplomatic ties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, through the opening statement, once again emphasized that our relationship is moving in the positive direction, but it is going to advance on the basis of mutual sensitivities and mutual trust. And Xi Jinping, in fact, reiterated the commitment that both sides have towards peace and tranquility. And after the special representatives talks in India, when the Foreign Minister of China, Mr. Wang Yi, came, visited India, spoke to the Foreign Affairs Minister, discussed border issues with our National Security Advisor. Upon reaching an agreement, there's peace and tranquility at the border. There's something that both leaders spoke about, and how a strong India-China relationship is not just important and significant for regional stability, but also for the world economic order. So we're waiting for more details to emerge about the issues that were raked up during the bilateral. Through the opening statements, we have a fair bit of idea now, Shreya, of how the border issue was brought up during the discussion and the developments that took place during Wang Yi's visit.
Absolutely, and that is something the government of India has made clear time and again, that without the borders being stable and peaceful, we cannot deepen this relationship. Swati, I'll keep coming back to you for the latest from Tianjin. Dr. Swaran Singh, among geostrategic circles, there was always talk that nothing substantial or big that we should expect from the SCO summit, but just the fact that India and China have had a separate relationship. We have been seeing this in the context of American tariffs, but we've had a relationship, and we are marking 75 years of that relationship this year. But, you know, just the fact that the timing of this summit perhaps couldn't have been coming at a better time with the kind of geopolitical challenges that both India and China have been facing, and therefore just the perfect message that perhaps both countries had been looking for.
If you look at the fact that normalization of China-India relations go back at least to October last year, because of this growing ratcheting up of relationship by President Donald Trump with India, increasingly the public perception is growing that perhaps that is the main driver as to why Indian Prime Minister is attending Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Second, what is a big takeaway or not so big takeaway depends on how we perceive the challenges in India-China relations. They have a fairly complex relationship with enormous tensions during last 5 years. So even incremental steps, you heard Prime Minister announcing direct flights to be resumed. And we have already seen, as you mentioned in the opening, India's focus is to resolve border first. And on that, after disengagement, the de-escalation is taking a little longer time because focus is in building atmospherics. And there you see already the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra is resumed. Border trade in Lipulekh, Shipkila, Natula is almost beginning to be revived. And the 24th meeting of special representatives did mention that we need to set up an expert group for water sharing as well. In fact, very interesting, the two more expert groups in that 10-point consensus include special expert group for border management. You heard Prime Minister in opening remarks saying we need to have trust to have better border management. Whether that group is to be constituted. In fact, they went step forward. The 10-point consensus spoke of setting up an expert group for border demarcation. Border demarcation is extremely next step. We have not moved there as yet. So even if there are incremental changes in bilateral relations, which I think are bound to happen after this meeting, which went 20 minutes beyond 40 minutes initially scheduled, is definitely interesting. But you also remember China and India are second and fourth largest economies today. So among world's top 4 economies, two are China and India, developing countries, Asian countries, neighbors. So when they come together, especially in a situation when all the countries, whether they are 10 members or 14 dialogue partners of SCO, they are all facing President Trump's tariffs. So even if SCO is supposed to look at security, it will look at economic issues as well.
Let me also welcome Ambassador Kanwal Sibal onto the broadcast. Ambassador Sibal, thanks very much for joining us on Times Now. Can I first understand from you your big takeaways from both the opening statements of Prime Minister Modi as well as President Xi Jinping? A lot of emphasis on borders being stable, mutual trust. That word trust is perhaps, something of an irony between India and China.
Well, when you are having this kind of a conversation, which is being recorded and is being publicized, there is nothing much you can say which is sensitive, which actually tells you what are the kind of important decisions that both sides need to take to move the relationship forward. So, Prime Minister has said what we've been saying for a long time, and Xi Jinping has said the same thing. This thing about the elephant and the dragon dancing together is something which Chinese representatives, even on all these TV shows that they come to in India, say the same thing. For months they've been saying this. The importance of Prime Minister's visit is a bit different. One, that the fact that he has gone to China for the SCO summit itself sends a very strong political message internationally to the Americans in particular, and also domestically. Secondly, this renewal of contact at the highest level will lead to some instructions being given, some guidelines being given down the line on how to move forward, what was agreed to when Wang Yi came here and had talks with the NSA as well as the foreign minister. This will be a slow process, but nevertheless, there will be instructions going down from the top to move the process forward. The third thing in this is that it's come on the heels of the tariffs imposed by the United States, especially the penalties that have been imposed on us. It's kind of a trade war that Trump has launched against India. It is a trade war.
Okay.
And we have a very extensive, expansive relationship with China. Now, we can move more towards China and give more economic openings, but it will depend on how much the Chinese open their market to us. I know that we've been trying for years to have Chinese buy more of our products, but we have not really succeeded. In fact, the deficit has now gone up to $100 billion, which is unsustainable. Now, whether China would be willing to open its market more, there is a question mark.
Okay.
With regard to this border issue, there's a couple of things. One is that I'm a bit surprised that we're talking about early harvest with regard to border issues, because this is contrary to the 2005 agreement on political parameters and guiding principles for resolving the border issue, which clearly says it will be a package deal. It will be a package deal. Now, when the Chinese talk of an early harvest, they want to settle the border in Sikkim. Whereas, from our point of view, that is not a border, that discussions that need to be reopened with the Chinese, because we know what the demands are, and in fact, Doklam was caused because of that. So I think this kind of the contradiction which is there in the kind of announcement we have made needs to be clarified. The other is that in the 5 guiding principles and this and that, in the 2005 guiding principles, it's our intention in including something in that as one of the principles was that the population of the border areas will not be disturbed. The Chinese walked away from that. Now, without going into details, let me say very conclusively, the Chinese will not make any territorial concession to India. On top of that, we've seen how they have actually, for the first time, openly colluded with Pakistan during the Operation Sindoor, which is a new thing. Earlier on, we had no information that they were doing this, but this time they did it. And we have said it at the level of our Deputy Chief of Army Staff. So these are the kind of problems that we face with China, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And let's give a message that to the international community, to the Americans in particular, that we have other options. We can move towards consolidating our role in SCO and in BRICS and everything else as an alternative to American-led organizations, because America is now beginning to act very unilaterally. The same phase that they had after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And this is unacceptable.
Okay, Ambassador Sibal, then let me understand from you, while we're sending out that strong message to Donald Trump and America, and we are facing the kind of secondary tariffs that we have for the purchase of Russian oil, there was also a call between Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister Modi right ahead of, Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Putin. And I want to understand from you, while there are, there are statements being made of how India can be the peacemaker. Being a peacemaker involves a lot. Would India want to get into that role of, helping them carve out territory after territory, who is to go into what? Would India be interested in doing that?
Certainly not. I mean, if Trump fails in this effort, how will India succeed? What are our levers? See, Trump has all the levers. He is talking directly to Putin. Putin is actually praising Trump for his forward-looking views on relations with Russia. Trump has clearly told the Americans that my engagement with Russia goes beyond the Ukraine issue. He in fact said that I want to wean Russia away from China, a mistake that Biden, he says, committed. And on Ukraine, he has given some hard lessons to Zelensky about what he can expect. No NATO membership, and there has to be territorial concessions by Zelensky.
Yeah.
Zelensky, with the encouragement, full encouragement of the Europeans, is saying very stubbornly that he needs security guarantees, Article 5 type of guarantees, and that there will be absolutely no compromise on territory. Now, with this kind of hardline position, what's the point of his talking to Prime Minister Modi and talking about... Now, again, in his conversation with Prime Minister Modi, he talks about ceasefire, right? But Trump has ruled out a ceasefire. He wants to go straight to a peace agreement. So Zelensky is playing his usual diplomatic games because in every event, even if it is Eurovision, he projects himself. So since the meeting is taking place in China, he's projecting himself by reaching out to India. We won't mind passing on messages confidentially as we've done in the past. And if at a certain stage there's a UN resolution, after there is a peace agreement, or peacekeepers on the ground, since Russia has said they're not going to accept Europeans on the ground, then India can think of some role.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Ambassador Sibal, thank you very much for joining us on Times Now and sharing your perspective. Let's wait and watch how this moves forward. The India-China relationship, as well as the kind of messaging that the entire SCO summit wants to send to not just Donald Trump, but the entire West. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sibal. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a short break. News and updates will continue on Times Now.